Welcome to Criminalia. I'm Maria Tremarchi.
And I'm Holly Fry. Together, we invite you into the dark corridors of history and true crime.
For each season, we explore a new theme, from poisoners to stalkers, art thieves to snake oil salesmen.
And tune in at the end of each episode as we indulge in cocktails and mocktails inspired by each story. Listen to Criminalia on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey y'all, Dr. Joy here. I invite you to join me every Wednesday on the Therapy for Black Girls podcast, a weekly chat about mental health and personal development, where my expert guests and I discuss the unique challenges and triumphs faced by Black women through the lens of self-care, pop culture, and building the best version of you. So if you're looking for more ways to incorporate wellness into your life, listen to the Therapy for Black Girls podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, listeners. I'm Andrea Gunning, host of Betrayal. This season on the podcast, we follow Stacey Rutherford, who thought she met her soulmate when she laid eyes on Dr. Justin Rutherford. They fell in love, and it was better than she ever imagined. But this family doctor, beloved father, and treasured husband had dark secrets. He had sworn to do no harm, but would resort to any means necessary to save himself. I'm excited to share this betrayal story with you, and even more excited to tell you that you can get access to all episodes 100% ad-free with an iHeart True Crime Plus subscription, available exclusively on Apple Podcasts. Plus, you'll get access to the next episode 1 week ahead of everyone else, available only to iHeart True Crime Plus subscribers. And you'll also get access to all episodes from Betrayal Season 1 and Season 2 ad-free as well. So don't wait. Head to Apple Podcasts, search for iHeart True Crime Plus, and subscribe today.
Hey everyone, it's Amanda Rieger Green. Welcome to Soul Sessions and part 2 of Working with Crystals. Listen, the easiest thing for you to do if you are new to crystals and need a little insight and guidance and need some go-tos is check out the Crystal Guide. It's a freebie, soulpathology.com. That is an easy go-to resource, and we are going to continue diving into utilizing crystals, harnessing their potential, their activation, and their abilities in order to harness your light. All the tricks I know and all the tips, part 2. Let's get started. There are some crystals that are highly potent. Like if you're working with hematite, it's a heavy stone. It's kind of silvery gray. It is a massive detoxification stone. It literally will drain the life out of you. I would never wear a hematite bracelet for 4 months, let alone a day or two. Like I will put a hematite bracelet on if I'm detoxing some stuff, whether it is mental and emotional or physically I'm detoxing. Like if I'm doing a physical cleanse or a detox, I'll put hematite on and I will put it on my right arm. And I will tell you, if I start physically feeling achy or weak or so drained and depleted, and sometimes I will see the circles come out underneath my eyes, like my eyes will start getting like hollow and black. I mean, I have seen it and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the darn hematite. It's too much on my system. Like I can feel it. And I'll be like, okay, thank you, hematite. And I'll take it off. And I might put it next to my bed or under my pillow for a night. So there are some crystals that to me are very potent that you just work with a little at a time. Moldavite is one that people ask about a lot. It's a meteorite stone. I have a piece of moldavite that I got in Flagstaff, Arizona at the conservatory. It's attached to the university there. And I got this piece of moldavite and I love it. And I work with it very intentionally and mindfully when I wear it. It's a pendant. I usually wear it long. I wear it, it hits just below my sternum. And I can only wear it for a certain amount of time and then it's too much or too heavy or things get really chaotic in and around me. So that's the thing with working with crystals. Now, if you're working with a rose quartz or an amethyst, oh my gosh, your go-to stone for putting stones in your children's rooms are rose quartz, amethyst, selenite, all the calcites. Ugh, the calcites are so good for children's rooms, babies, pets, putting them under their dog bed. I mean, obviously you need to be mindful of the size. I mean, unless your dog eats stones and rocks, but I've had a dog that does stuff like that. So you have to use your intelligence and your reason and your logic, but those stones for children's rooms, those are just no-brainers because they're gentle and they're purifying and they're easy and compassionate and clearing and loving and nurturing and safe. And I'm going to go through specifically a few. And the one that everybody asks about is, what is a stone of protection? And the way I think of the heavy hitters for protection, but I would call it for energetic strengthening and fortifying. So I usually don't use the word protection because protection invokes that I need protecting from. So black tourmaline is like a no-brainer because it is so good at strengthening the aura and the energy field. That is one of my favorites. It's a very psychic stone. It's grounding. It's very good for clearing and fortifying the energy field. It's striated, so it's just kind of gorgeous to look at. But black tourmaline is kind of the no-brainer in energetic clearing. I love onyx. It's another black stone, obviously. Apache tear is another good one for energetic clearing and healing. On the other side of the spectrum for protection or energy clearing and strengthening is also selenite, which is a salt-based stone. It's inexpensive. It's beautiful. It does not like a saltwater bath, so it does not go in your bathtub or your water, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute because that is the most fun to work with crystals and the vibration of water. But selenite wands, if I work with tourmaline, I will absolutely have a selenite with it. In fact, I have two sitting right here. I have a selenite stick and a tourmaline right next to me, and they're white and black, so it's kind of like yin and yang, so it balances out the energy field. One brings in light and the other one grounds in and creates this beautiful juxtaposition, polarity that creates kind of a cohesive electromagnetic feel. So tourmaline and selenite work great together for energetic clearing and quote unquote protection, right? Like that's a really good one. I also love rutilated or smoky quartz for energetic clearing and protection for this kind of psychic energy, energetic boundaries. Those are my favorite. And rutilated quartz is really great for balancing out the adrenal glands, stress, and it also kind of helps with brain fog. Fluorite helps with brain fog too, but fluorite to me isn't so much of a protective or energy clearing stone as it is an internally like focused stone. It helps with focus and discernment, like interconnecting the head and the heart. Fluorite is so great for discernment and it helps you with psychic abilities, but it's more about the communication, using your voice consciously and cognitively. Smoky quartz is really a good stabilizing stone, and smoky and rutilated are very similar, but those are very helpful. I also love lava stone. It's very porous. Again, it would not like salt water, but it's light, and lava stone, and all crystals, by the way, love what I'm about to say. Lava stone is so great to put essential oils on. Like you can rub essential oils on some lava stone, whether you have a bracelet or you have a stone itself, and put the essential oils on it. But all crystals love that. I put essential oils on my crystals all the time, just intuitively. And I just do it like, like I'm giving them an essential oil bath and then I put some on myself. But lava stone is great. It's black and the porous quality of it soaks up energy, and it's not heavy like hematite that might really detox and drain. It's more like it just purifies, and in this strong yet gentle way. Lava stone is such a great stone to work with. And if you feel like your heart is broken or your heart is heavy, it's like, ugh, you've just had enough, or you've had heartache or heartbreak or hurt feelings, or you just feel exhausted by life. Malachite. Malachite is great for balancing electromagnetic energies. It's a great one to have by your computer or by your bed or next to a TV, because it really does clarify electromagnetic frequencies, but it attunes with the heart, and it is so enriching, and it kind of organically, that green, organic heart chakra, beautiful green color of malachite that is kind of mesmerizing to look at. It's like it radiates heart chakra energy, and it personifies a higher vibrational frequency. So, as your vibrational frequency lifts, the less quote unquote protection or fear you hold in your energy field. So crystals help us do that. And I'll talk about crystals in water and crystals in bath in a second. If you have some physical ailments, so disease or chronic conditions, that kind of thing going on, one of my favorite stones, well, two of them, I'm like, gosh, I could name 10, but two of my favorite go-tos. One is blue apatite. I love apatite, and it's spelled just like hunger, appetite. It's blue, and it's kind of an aqua-y blue, but apatite is so great for optimal health and well-being. It is wonderful for cellular rejuvenation. It's good for hormone balancing. It carries an energy of gratitude or appreciation, so it's uplifting, it's like charming and optimistic. It's a throat chakra stone, so it's good if you have a thyroid condition. It helps organically stimulate well-being and health. So if you've got like a cancer going on, when my mom had cancer, I always had blue apatite for her. Like, it just was one of those stones where I was like, you have to have blue apatite. That's the one. The other one I love is bloodstone. And bloodstone is green and red. It's got these red veins in it, and it's beautiful, like mossy green. And it's kind of mesmerizing to look at, like malachite. But it is so wonderful. Obviously, it connects with the blood and stimulating your blood and your life force. So it's very rooting, like it's very, very connected to the root chakra, and then it's connected to the heart chakra. And it's green, so it's like plant, animal kingdom, all of that green, lush energy. And then you've got the blood color of it. And that stone is so wonderful for grief. It's wonderful for growth and new life and stimulation. Like if you've got something going on, if you've got heart disease, that's a good one. Or if you've got cholesterol, that one would be a good one too. Cholesterol challenges. Again, cancers, that's one of my favorite. My favorite stone for grief, and I recommend this and have for 10 years. It's my go-to, and it's the most unassuming, is moss agate. I think moss agate is one of the most underrated, unassuming stones there is. It's white and green, and it connects with the crown chakra. So pulling in divine consciousness, intelligence, information, and the heart chakra. And to me, I call it the grief and growth stone. It loves to be outside in plants and gardens, by the way. Like, it's the kind of stone, like I'll put moss agate in a potted plant because the plant thrives and the moss agate is happy. And then if I need to work with it, I'll go get it, or I'll talk to it in my mind. Oh, I need to clear some grief. But moss agate is my favorite grief and growth stone because I feel like it is gentle, yet it is stimulating. It's organic. It's like chlorophyll for the soul. It's just one of my favorites. And if you go on Amazon and get you a moss agate 4mm crystal bracelet, I bet you it's like $7.99. You're going to be like, jackpot. And if you're a dude or you want a bigger crystal bracelet, the 6mm. So if you're buying them for a boyfriend or your husband, and believe me, I do that. And I recommend crystals to males all the time, and they wear them. And I'm like, you're just going to look like you know what's up. But usually for guys, I'll order the 6mm bracelets. And sometimes I will say, when we get those, they still are a little tight on male wrist. So with guys and crystal bracelets, sometimes you do have to spend the $30 at the metaphysical store to see if the crystal bracelet fits. I have a lot of friends who get custom-made crystal bracelets on Etsy, or I know people who make custom crystal bracelets or malas, and you can pick your stones and they'll make them for you. I've had plenty of malas made for me that I love and I work with where they've been personalized and made for me, and I've picked out the stones. Or you can go on Etsy. There's lots of places on Etsy. And I've had people gift them to me and said, gosh, the gal that makes these, she's so lovely. She was so sweet in working with me and picking out and suggesting some stones. I got a couple of different custom-made crystal bracelets after my mom died from two of my friends. My friend Gwen got me one, and it was so precious. It had lava stones and rhodonite, and she's like, the gal I worked with was so cool. And I wish I knew the name. And if I find it out, I will let y'all know. But you can do your research and find somebody cool for that. Speaking of rhodonite, that is such a great healing stone as well. Rhodonite, it's very heart-centered. It's pink and black, and it creates a lot of self-compassion and nurture. And usually when we've got disease in the body or a chronic condition going on, there's pain and there's agitation and there is depression or exhaustion and demotivation, that sort of thing. Rhodonite does such a lovely, compassionate, graceful, gentle job of kind of soothing the heart and the pain and the suffering that not only may be happening physically, but it's happening emotionally. And a lot of times, too, I'm going to say this, people talk about, well, how many crystals should I work with or how many should I have? The rule of thumb to me with that, like when I do work with crystals, like 2 or 3. Now, when I'm recommending crystals to people, I'll usually recommend 3 or 4 because I can't help myself. I'm like, oh, yeah, and this one and this one. But I will usually work with them 2 to 3 at a time, like in bracelet form. And even if you have a bracelet, you can put it under your pillow. You don't have to have a loose stone, but I will put crystals under my pillow for like a week at a time. You know, I will pull 1 or 2, sometimes 3 for under my pillow, or I have crystals under the bed. I've created crystal grids with these pyramids, and I will do that, and then I'll get them out and clear them, and then I'll rearrange them and create a new grid. And if you've never created a crystal grid, it's easy and it's fun. So all you have to do, and I do crystal grids almost every full and new moon and have for maybe 12, 11 years. But for a crystal grid, the easiest way to do that, and you can do it in 4 corners of a room, you can do it under your bed, you can do it out in the moonlight. But what you do, or my rule of thumb is, I start with the central crystal. I put 1 crystal in the center, and then I build out a geometric shape from that. So I'll usually go to 4 corners after that, and then I'll create like a hexagon or maybe an octagon, and I move the crystals out at different spaces. It's like creating a mandala. Like I'm just intuitively placing different crystals, and then once I've placed 10 crystals, 12 crystals, really big ones out under the moonlight and all sorts of things. But I mean, usually it would be like, I don't know, 12 crystals or something. Once I've created a grid, and sometimes there'll be like a straight line, like a T shape, like a cross, like an axis, and then I'll build in different crystals from there. So sometimes it looks more like a flower or a starburst or a sunshine. Other times I can make like a circle, you know, just a winding circle that goes out. You can make an infinity symbol. You could write out your name. It does not have to be some perfect crystal grid geometry. Do something creative that works for you and intuitively. But once you've laid the stones out, I take the center stone, or the stone that I started with, or the stone that I end with. So it just depends on where I'm intuitively called, the stone I start with or the stone I end with in the grid. And then I take the point of that crystal, even if it's not like a pyramid or a crystal point. I hold the crystal and then I tap each crystal one by one, like activating the points on the grid. A lot of times I'll tap 1 to 2, 1 to 3, 1 to 4. there's no right or wrong way, but it's like I'm activating the ley lines or the little lasers or the little energy grid by each of those crystals. And once I feel like I have activated and connected every single point, which it's whatever organically and intuitively I do, then I place that crystal where it goes, and I feel like the grid has been activated. And if it's under a new or a full moon, it's usually out there for 3 nights for me. That's just kind of my rule of thumb, where they charge for 3 nights, and then I gather those crystals up and then I work with them. So the crystal grid, like if you're doing it in your bedroom, like under your bed or under a baby's crib or on your kitchen counter, in your office, it's for setting and activating an energy field within those crystals. So when I create a grid under the moonlight, usually my journal is with it, or sometimes I will put a note out there, something sacred to me, or I might put some of my mom's ashes out there, or a figurine, or a dried flower. Like it's a sacred ceremony for me that I create intuitively and make it mine. But when I activate a crystal grid under the moonlight, the purpose of that for me is about ceremony and ritual and activating energy, activating my intentions on that full or that new moon. It's about creating intentional activation and alignment. So I create that grid, I put my intentions in that grid, the intentions for that full or that new moon, and then I let it marinate, like blowing out birthday candle wishes or throwing a coin into a fountain. I activate it, I put my intention in, I thank it, and then I let it do its magic for 3 nights. And once that new moon ritual is over for me, I gather the stones, and I may put a couple next to my bed. I deactivate the crystal grid, I thank it, I might meditate with it for a while before I unassemble it. So you do what you want to do, but the energy is highly activated between those lines and when it's been out marinating under a moon. So it's really good to meditate with before you take it apart. But then when I take it apart, to me, in my mind, the energetic grid that was created with the culmination of those stones and through that energy, each individual stone is activated by that. So I'll take a couple and I'll put them under my bed, under my pillow the next couple of nights. I'll meditate with them. I might put 1 or 2 on my desk. So I kind of separate them out, but they carry the energy with me for the next 30 days. Let's say if it's a new or a full moon, and it's still got, even if I'm not thinking about those intentions that I set or the prayers that I spoke or the mantras that I recited with that crystal grid, the crystal is. Because remember, what's inside of a computer or an iPhone or a smartphone? A silica chip. It's a crystal. That's what transmits the intelligence and the information. That's what assimilates it. So it's like taking the activated crystal grid and a crystal from it, it's still transmitting that frequency near me and the vibration with me. So that's the way that I have learned to work with them, that I have found remarkable and very relevant. If you're activating a crystal grid in a room.
Hi, my name's Josh. I'm from the podcast The Imperfects, where we interview well-known people who look like they have perfect lives, but like most of us, in fact all of us, they're often far from it. We interview people like James Clear and Adam Grant.
What do you do with the feeling of being an imposter? It's really tempting to trust your own judgment over other people's. What you're forgetting is that other people see you more objectively. And I think what that means is if multiple people believe in you, it's probably time to believe them.
Listen to The Imperfects on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Andrea Gunning, host of the all-new podcast, There and Gone. It's a real-life story of 2 people who left a crowded Philadelphia bar, walked to their truck, and vanished.
Nobody hears anything. Nobody sees anything.
Did they run away? Was it an accident? Or were they murdered?
A truck and 2 people just don't disappear.
The FBI called it murder for hire.
It was definitely murder for hire for Danielle, not for Richard.
He's your son, and in your eyes, he's innocent. But in my eyes, he's just some guy my sister was with.
In this series, I dig into my own investigation to find answers for the families and get justice for Richard and Danielle. Listen to There and Gone South Street on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Katie Lowe's.
And I'm Guillermo Diaz.
And now we're back with another season of our podcast, Unpacking the Toolbox, where Guillermo and I will be rewatching the show
to officially unpack season 3 of Scandal.
Unpredictable, you don't see it coming. It's a wild, wild ride. The twists and turns in season 3.
Mesmerizing.
But also, we get to hang out with all of our old Scandal friends like Bellamy Young, Scott Foley, Tony Goldwyn, Debbie Allen, Kerry Washington.
So many people.
Even more shocking assassinations from Papa and Mama Pope.
And yes, Katie and I's famous teeth-pulling scene that kicks off a romance.
And it was peak TV. This is new Scandal content for your eyes, for your ears, for your hearts, for your minds.
Well, suit up, gladiators. Grab your big old glass of wine and prepare yourselves for an even more behind the scenes. Listen to Unpacking the Toolbox on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
If you're activating a crystal grid in a room, sometimes rooms just need clearing. Or they need, I've worked with a lot of homes and houses that are janked up, let's just say haunted and messed up. And we'll do a lot of energy clearing. And then a lot of times I will put selenite and tourmaline, and depending on the house, I'll put different crystals in corners, but I'll activate grids. Like I will put crystals in corners, and then I will, with like wands and certain little witchy tools that I have, I will activate the grids in certain rooms, in certain corners of the house, north, south, east, west, in a whole house, in a whole space. And then you leave it for a period of time, and then you cleanse and you shift or you redo it. It can get very involved, but it doesn't have to be that involved. So don't overthink it. But if you do want to create a crystal grid in your room, the easiest one would be to put selenite or tourmaline or malachite or amethyst, like whatever you're called to, in 4 corners of the room. Because that way you've just set these boundaries, you've kind of created the cardinal energies, the north, south, east, west, the medicine wheel. There's a lot to that symbolism of the 4, which is about solid foundations and infrastructure in numerology. But that way, you're creating an energy in there, and you set the intention that the energy in here is going to be soothing and healing and restful and safe and clear and of the highest light. When I sleep, I am restored and renewed. You charge the crystals with your words, your mind, your energy, your intentions, and your belief. If you want to do a crystal grid under your bed, I have done some really extensive ones, and my husband is like, you are nuts, but he doesn't really care. He just lets me do my thing, and he's like, okay, great, you're doing it. But he also totally supports it and buys into it. But I have created extensive crystal grids under our bed where I will be under the bed and placing them and then activating them. I mean, it's like a hot mess, but I'm very serious about it. But I have created grids under our bed if I feel like we're under a lot of stress, or things are disjointed, or the energy just feels off. And so I will do it so it realigns that space and it activates that space. And I'll set intentions, while we sleep. May we be healed and restored and clarified, strengthened, whatever the blessings and the prayers and the intentions might be. And then with that, my rule of thumb is I leave it. And then next thing you know, I've forgotten about it after 2 weeks. And then I'm like, oh yeah, those crystals are under the bed. And then I talk to them, and then I either remove them and thank them, and then I go clear them. Like I will put them in a saltwater bath after that, because I feel like, God, they've been under our bed a while. No telling what they've been subject to. Just kidding. But seriously, we do a lot of work in our astral bodies and in sleep, and we spend a lot of time in our bedroom, like binging TV and with electromagnetic frequencies and iPhones plugged in. Like there's just a lot of noise in a space where we really want it to be our sanctuary. So crystal grids can create an organic sanctuary and healing space, but I'll move them after a couple of weeks. Sometimes it's a month. It just depends on what's going on or what I think about. And then I clear them and I thank them and I set them free in the sunlight for a little bit or the moonlight, or I put them outside in some plants because I'm like, y'all need a break. After all this junk you've been dealing with, you need a break. So it's cheeky and it's fun. Let me go through a few psychic crystals that are really good for intuitive development and things like dream recall. Moonstone is fabulous for that. I love moonstone because it really is helpful in connecting with your higher self. It's wonderful for nurture and compassion. Also listening. I love moonstone to become a better listener, not just with other people, but with yourself and your higher self. It's also great for anxiety and depression. And there's different forms of moonstone. So find what works for you. And of course, it resonates with the moon, so it loves to be out under the moonlight. But it's a very intuitive stone, and it's really good for healing a lot of layers of gunk very organically. But it's a good one for dream recall, too. I love howlite. Howlite is a great stone for interconnecting the higher self with the human self, or really soothing the ego and connecting with a higher consciousness. So it's good for healing suffering, but it also opens up accelerated and higher levels of consciousness. And howlite is white and gray. And in the ancient metaphysical teachings, like of the tarot and the Hermetic principles, the color gray is really the color of discernment, because it's not black or white, yin or yang, yes or no, left or right. It's the mix of those two colors, and gray is the color of discernment and wisdom. And so howlite to me evokes interconnection of heaven and earth and purification of the mind, and this element of tapping into the ethereal world and wisdom. So howlite to me helps with our intuition, because it resonates with a frequency of speaking from the soul, speaking from what we believe, we know, our truth, but from our truest register. One of the best psychic stones I know is labradorite. It's like a Merlin stone. It's like magical. It's like the sorcerer's stone is kind of what labradorite looks like. It's green and black and kind of shimmery and gray, and it's totally magical, right? But labradorite is wonderful for developing psychic abilities, enhancing your extrasensory gifts. And also, I find labradorite very motivating. Like, it's a great kind of kick in the behind stone for a little bit of, you can't just be psychic and everything, you know it all. You got to exercise the muscle. You got to practice. You got to do the work, so to speak. Labradorite is very, I would say, nudging or encouraging, but it's more like, get off your behind, dude, and get the work done. Come on. Like, if you want it done, you better do it. So it's actually kind of sassy. Like, labradorite is more like, if you want it, go get it. It's a little cheeky to work with. Both the rutilated quartz and smoky quartz are great for intuitive development, but I love lepidolite. It's this mica stone that is purpley, and it's really beautiful. It's like kind of not fuchsia purple, but like a mauve-y purple pink. And lepidolite is so good for dream recall. So is angelite, but I like lepidolite the best. It's very third eye kind of stone, activating the knowledge within, the intuition, the inner eye, the inner seeing, the inner knowing. It's kind of sweet, you know? It's like the sweetness of life, and the extraordinary in the ordinary is lepidolite to me. It's one of my favorites. Angelite is a very great stone to work with for dream recall. It's an easy, accessible one. It's great for working with your angels and your guides, and also connecting with your loved ones on the other side. Lepidolite and angelite are kind of simple go-tos for connecting with your loved ones and dream recall as well. Both of those work really well with the angelic realms, the ascended masters, your guides. You can wear them, of course, but also I like to do a lot of that under my pillow at night to remember things, or sometimes with those stones, they're good to meditate with, and I'll make a crystal grid around myself sometimes. Like, I'll put one on my third eye, one above my head. I will make myself into a crystal grid and meditate sometimes, and I will just get in it and meditate. So you just intuitively play with these things. Great stones for focus and grounding. If you listen to this podcast, you know I'm really big on getting still, getting grounded, being very connected, because it's so important not only for your intuition, but your energetic boundaries and your health and well-being. Fluorite, I mentioned, is really wonderful for focus, but there's something to it. It's like a beam of light that runs through you when you work with fluorite. You know, if you've ever heard a guided meditation where they're like, bring this, light, funnel this light down through the crown of your head, down through your body to the center of the earth. That's what I think of when I work with fluorite. I feel like it just synthesizes everything and creates a cohesion of mind, body, spirit. Kyanite does that as well, but I love that one. Dragon's blood is so good for grounding. It's kind of similar to bloodstone, but it's different. But dragon's blood is so grounding, and so is red jasper. That's like a no-brainer go-to, red jasper is. But citrine can also be a very psychic stone. It's a very empowering stone. It has intuition. Citrine is kind of a catch-all for a lot of things, like grounded intuition. Like, oh, that gut feeling. Okay, I know this. Okay, I'm going to take action. Okay, I've made a decision. It's kind of like a turning point stone. When I was in treatment years ago, they took us on an outing. I got to get on what we called the druggy buggy. As you know, I've been in recovery for a long time. It was like we got to get out of the nut house for a day and go somewhere in the white van. I mean, you can just imagine how comical all of this is. And it's not comical because my life was shattered right at the time. But it's like, this was so exciting. It was like I was in 5th grade going on a field trip. But anyway, we went to this place in San Marcos, Texas called Wonder World, which are all these amazing inner caverns that are not very far from where I live now, that are beautiful caverns that you can walk through. And we were in the gift shop, and I had never bought or owned a crystal. And there was this citrine pendant hanging on this cheap black rope string thing, right? And I saw the citrine hanging, and immediately when I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to have that. And I tell you what, and I've shared this story before when I talked about my higher self and activating my higher self, of when I was in treatment and I laid down in bed that night, and I was like, I am. And then my higher self just started flooding through and talking to me. I was wearing that pendant.
Hi, this is Hugh here from the Imperfects podcast, where we chat to well-known people whose lives seem perfect from the outside, but through our discussions, they share the vulnerabilities and imperfections that make them who they are. We chat to people like James Clear and Adam Grant.
You could have hidden potential to be a better partner, to be a better friend, improve as a parent. There's so much discussion of how do we build our careers? When are we asking the question of how do we build our character?
Listen to the Imperfects on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Andrea Gunning, host of the all-new podcast, There and Gone. It's a real-life story of 2 people who left a crowded Philadelphia bar, walked to their truck, and vanished.
Nobody hears anything. Nobody sees anything.
Did they run away? Was it an accident? Or were they murdered?
A truck and 2 people just don't disappear.
The FBI called it murder for hire.
It was definitely murder for hire for Danielle, not for Richard.
He's your son, and in your eyes, he's innocent. But in my eyes, he's just some guy my sister was with.
In this series, I dig into my own investigation to find answers for the families and get justice for Richard and Danielle. All that they know. Listen to There and Gone South Street on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Katie Lowe's.
And I'm Guillermo Diaz.
And now we're back with another season of our podcast, Unpacking the Toolbox, where Guillermo and I will be rewatching the show.
To officially unpack season 3 of Scandal.
Unpredictable, you don't see it coming. It's a wild, wild ride. The twists and turns in season 3.
Mesmerizing.
But also, we get to hang out with all of our old Scandal friends, like Bellamy Young, Scott Foley, Tony Goldwyn, Debbie Allen, Kerry Washington.
So many people.
Even more shocking assassinations from Papa and Mama Pope.
And yes, Katie and I's famous teeth-pulling scene that kicks off a romance.
And it was peak TV. This is new Scandal content for your eyes, for your ears, for your hearts, for your minds.
Well, suit up, gladiators. Grab your big old glass of wine and prepare yourselves for an even more behind the scenes. Listen to Unpacking the Toolbox on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
My higher self just started flooding through and talking to me. I was wearing that pendant. It was all coming together, and looking back, I remembered, and I was like, oh my gosh, this crystal. I didn't know, but I knew. And then I remember, like, I probably found this is 2013, the Crystal Vaults site, and I'm reading about citrine because I'm like, what kind of stone is this, and what does it do? At the place, they didn't have like little metaphysical signs where citrine does this or this is citrine. I had to figure out what it was. And sure enough, I read about citrine and I was mind blown. I was like, oh my gosh. And I had that stone for years. And I gave it to someone who was really disempowered and in duress in their life and in a kind of a cycle and in a lot of old patterning that was not serving them. And I said, I have a really special crystal that I'm very attached to, but I think you're supposed to have it. And by that time, it was on a really beautiful silver chain. I had put it on a chain. I had, judged it up or whatever. But I gave it to her. And God, that was years ago. That might have been in like 2017 or something like that. That is the only stone that I have ever gifted that I actually think about sometimes, and I talk to it. So it's like I don't have it, but I always say, hey, how are you? I miss you. I hope you're doing well. So hopefully you get the fact that there's a little bit of playfulness, a little bit of tongue-in-cheek, but I also take it pretty seriously. Let me close with just a few other stones just so you have this. And I've got a great, on the website, if you go to soulpathology.com, I've got a crystal guide on there that are just, to me, a huge repository of the basics and what they do. So you can download it. It's free. There also are links in that freebie to Amazon bracelets, 4mm Amazon bracelets. So you don't even have to do any of the work. Just download the guide and you can go find these. But emotional intelligence, really working with your feeling body. One of my favorites is serpentine. It's such a good stone. It's such a Scorpio stone because it's a little sexy. It's a little mysterious. It's wonderful for activating Kundalini. For goodness sakes, it's called serpentine. So you do that, you put those puzzle pieces together. But it's kind of greeny yellow, and it's good for chakra alignment. And it's really good for healthy sensuality and sexuality. It's good for creativity. And it's kind of an intense stone. So it's one of those stones where you certainly can wear it on one side of the body for a couple of weeks or a couple months and the other side of the body. But if you feel like it's throwing you off your game, or if it feels too much, back off of it for a little bit. Be pay attention if you're working with serpentine. Carnelian is an easy go-to for creativity and emotional intelligence because it really does work very well with the sacral chakra and flow. And also it's great for romance, calling in romance. I love goldstone. Goldstone is a copper man-made stone, it's red jasper, and it has copper flecks in it. And they have multiple colors of goldstone. So you might find black goldstone, blue goldstone, goldstone, which is just like a coppery color. But regular goldstone, which is coppery with the copper flecks, like red jasper with that in it, it is such a great stone to find your passion and your creativity. So is sunstone. Sunstone is wonderful for cultivating passion and creativity. I think serpentine is good for your sex drive, maybe with a little bit of black tourmaline. And labradorite, I mean, if you really want to get witchy and sexy, like those might work. I can come up with all sorts of combinations, but those are good. And garnet is so good for inspiration and passion and determination and joy and happiness. It really resonates with the lower chakras. I also love lapis for the artist. Lapis is good for the adventurer, the artist, the poet. If you're trying to write or inspire something, or you're creating a new online course, or you've got to write a lesson plan for your students, do it with lapis. If you're going on a trip, I always take crystals with me on trips. Like I'll put a few in my bag, and sometimes I end up giving them away. Or sometimes I'm like, I needed these with me. Like, these are the ones I needed. No wonder I put them in my purse or in my suitcase. But a lot of times I'll take some lapis. Lapis is the traveler's stone, and it just kind of inspires adventure and creativity. A couple that I haven't talked about that I just came to mind are tiger's eye. Tiger's eye is so good for working with the lower chakras, so the root chakra, the sacral chakra, and the solar plexus, and it really is transformative and empowering. It's grounding, and it has kind of an alchemy to it. It's very alchemical in really being present in your body, your mind, and your actions. I love it for regenerating creativity and passion, but also giving you direction and the oomph or the motivation. A really fun one is peacock ore. Sometimes it's kind of hard to find, but I love peacock ore just because it's kind of fun and magical, and it's an ore, so it has a little bit of pyrite in it, and it has a different sheen to it, so it can be kind of blue and pink and yellow, and it's just magical looking. But I love pyrite for opening up to new possibilities and being optimistic and instilling hope and faith and magic. Peacock ore, it's just so magical. You all know that I could go on and give you probably 50 other crystal recommendations, but hopefully that covered a lot of bases. And it gave you not only a 101, but all sorts of ideas and insights. And the big takeaways are use your intuition and be reasonable. Don't second guess yourself. Be like, this is the one I want. Okay. And this is how I'm going to work with it. Okay. Let me see what this stone tells me. And I'm going to work with it with the highest light. Thank you for working with me. Thank you for finding me. Let's work together. Help me heal this, or show me what I need for my healing or my growth. And then see what it tells you, or do your research around it, or charge it up and see if you can tell the difference after you charge it a couple of nights under the moonlight. Have fun. Play with it. Put the crystals in your bra. Put them in your pocket. Put them in the car. Put them next to the vanity in your bathroom, your desk. I mean, there's crystals all over my desk right now, but put them in your desk and then work a couple, 2 or 3 at a time. Just play with it and meditate with them. People who are very in tune with crystals, their messages, what they transmit. I have a handful of crystals that are like otherworldly, other planet, that feel like computer chips to me. Like I can hold them and I feel like I am getting messages from other dimensions and other realms. And I have friends who do that well. I have one dear friend, and he can channel archangels with crystals like nobody's business. And when they're sitting in his room, like there will be prisms and sunlight and like all sorts of rainbows and colors and things that come off of the crystals. They literally project colors and imagery that he can capture on film. And to me, any crystal can do that. But the guy that's working with the crystal is like, they do it with him. They're like, we'll show you. You deserve to see this because you're a wizard. There are some people who really can activate a crystal into its full potential. So just play with them and use them. And of course, I've got to say one more thing, and then I'm totally closing up. Okay, if you think back to lots of religious text, crystals are all over the place, and they come in the form of precious gemstones. diamonds, sapphires, rubies, emeralds. Those are crystals, and they vibrate at a very high frequency. So does gold, silver, platinum, copper. Those precious metals or those gemstones are phenomenal to work with. This year, I have almost singularly worked with gold and a few other crystals sprinkled in, but I have worked with gold all year long. So I have not worn crystal bracelets this year. I've just worn pure gold bracelets or pure gold little necklaces. I mean, I might sleep with a crystal or meditate with one, or every now and then, I'll bring ones in the car with me. But as far as on my person this year, I have worked with a lot of gold. And of course, I have diamonds in my ring, so I've cleansed and cleared those and asked them to work with me. I've worn my mom's sapphire and gold wedding bands this year a lot. So those stones, precious metals and gemstones, are very powerful to work with. It's why they're expensive. It's why there is usually a gold crown with all sorts of gemstones on a king or queen's head around their crown chakra and third eye. Isn't that curious, right? Like, think about a crown, and they're adorned with diamonds and pearls. They activate energy in the crown of the head and psychic energies, the breastplate of David. There is something to the activation of crystal energy and the transmission of divinity or intelligence. So think about that. And if you want to work with like your jewelry, or you have some precious stones, gemstones, or gold, silver, your metals, treat it just like you would any of the things we've talked about with crystals, and be intentional. Say, work with me. Let me clear and cleanse your energy. I'm putting it on this wrist. I'm going to wear this for the next 2 weeks, this silver cuff. Silver is so healing and revitalizing, and it is so good for the immune system. Gold is great for, it's like the elixir of life, like longevity. So you can look up the metaphysical qualities of gold, diamond, sapphire, and see, and then pick one and work with it. And it doesn't matter if you just have a little tiny gold necklace, wear it. I have a tiny gold necklace with a little tiny opal in it. And it has 3 little diamonds and this opal, and it's very dainty and it's unassuming and small, and I've been working with it for months on purpose because of the opal and because of the gold and the little diamonds, and they're tiny, but I'm like, it's right there at my throat and very close to my heart. So there's intention behind it. You do you, have fun, and ask questions. If you've got questions, there are things I didn't cover that you're curious about, podcast@soulsessions.me. Also, tell me about experiences or ideas you have or things that work for you. I'd love to hear your feedback. All right, everyone, be well.
Welcome to Criminalia. I'm Maria Tremarchi.
And I'm Holly Fry. Together, we invite you into the dark corridors of history and true crime.
For each season, we explore a new theme, from poisoners to stalkers, art thieves to snake oil salesmen.
And tune in at the end of each episode as we indulge in cocktails and mocktails inspired by each story. Listen to Criminalia on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey y'all, Dr. Joy here. I invite you to join me every Wednesday on the Therapy for Black Girls podcast, a weekly chat about mental health and personal development, where my expert guests and I discuss the unique challenges and triumphs faced by Black women through the lens of self-care, pop culture, and building the best version of you. So if you're looking for more ways to incorporate wellness into your life, listen to the Therapy for Black Girls podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, listeners. I'm Andrea Gunning, host of Betrayal. This season on the podcast, we follow Stacey Rutherford, who thought she met her soulmate when she laid eyes on Dr. Justin Rutherford. They fell in love, and it was better than she ever imagined. But this family doctor, beloved father, and treasured husband had dark secrets. He had sworn to do no harm, but would resort to any means necessary to save himself. I'm excited to share this betrayal story with you, and even more excited to tell you that you can get access to all episodes 100% ad-free with an iHeart True Crime Plus subscription, available exclusively on Apple Podcasts. Plus, you'll get access to the next episode 1 week ahead of everyone else, available only to iHeart True Crime Plus subscribers. And you'll also get access to all episodes from Betrayal Season 1 and Season 2 ad-free as well. So don't wait. Head to Apple Podcasts, search for iHeart True Crime Plus, and subscribe today.